The year is 166 AD, and Rome is nearing the end of the Pax Romana, a 200-year period of peace and prosperity. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius has expanded the empire to the very borders of the Persian Sea. However, a mysterious plague from the east has been reported at the edges of this new frontier by the Roman legionaries who fought in this most recent campaign. Against this backdrop, Vincentius Regulus, a wealthy Gara merchant, is en route to the fabled lands of Selica as part of an envoy mission requested by the emperor himself. The Emperor Hadrian had called the port city of Tyre the Great City. Located in the Roman province of Syria Phoenicia, it jutted out from the land surrounding it almost a kilometer into the sea. To the people of Tyre, though, it was simply mother, their home. Several impressive monuments and buildings were in the city. There was the triumphal arch of Hadrian, whose gleaming multicolored construction stood some 70 feet in height, separating the outer border of the city from the interior. And running parallel to the city's main road was the life-giving aqueduct, which extended both to the east and south of the city, providing two sources of fresh water. Dominating the interior of the city, though, was the Hippodrome of Tyre, 270 feet wide and nearly 1,500 feet in length. It could hold 30 to 40,000 people to view chariot races. And two teams dominated these races, the blues of the western quarter of the city and the greens of the eastern. It was from this city and several others north of it that the Phoenicians would rise to colonize much of the Mediterranean coastline, including the founding of cities like Carthage, which would give rise to one of Rome's greatest adversaries, the Phoenician Hannibal of Carthage. After 8 days of travel, your boat and its crew arrived at the city's southwestern docks. Lucius, having been forced to separate from the poppy milk, was physically well, but the mental toll of its use was still evident. He found little joy in anything and spent his time during the trip moping and quite miserable. He would frequently state, "What joy is left in this dark and miserable world?" The plan, though, was simple and straightforward. You would hire a stagecoach from a contact in the local council for the trip to Tesson, where you would meet the rest of your group and hire anyone else required. That part of the plan was the simple part. Its execution, however, that would prove tricky. Your brother Lucius was not one to enjoy idle time or time monitored, yet without monitoring, he could quickly wreak havoc, so time was of the essence. The quicker you were back at sea, the less idle time for Lucius. With that said, many months still separated you from the waters that would take you to Selica. The local council ran the city autonomously, and while they paid their Roman taxes to the governor, who in turn paid forward to the treasury, day-to-day business was the city's alone. Its head was a personal friend and business associate of yours, Balshilak ben Garash. He had worked with your father to bring garum to the Roman frontier east of Tyre, a former caravan leader who had traveled extensively through the deserts, mountains, badlands, and coastal routes. He had turned to the maritime trade after partnering with your father for garum, seeing it as both more profitable and a less strenuous venture. You, your brother, and 8 soldiers that would accompany you further wandered the path through the core of the bustling city to a magnificently ornate administrative building. In a lavish room at the back of this building was the 48-year-old Balshilak. He stood average height but was stocky with strong arms used to labor, short, cropped hair, mostly gray, with some specks of black, and brooding brown eyes. "Vincentius, my boy, good-looking as always," he shouted on seeing you, and walked forward embracing you with a big hug. As he drew away, he muttered, "And Lucius I see," casting your brother a quick, irritated glance. It was clear that these two had some additional history you were not aware of. Thankfully, your brother kept quiet, electing to just mope at the entryway with the soldiers. "I have need of your services, Balshilak. A request from the emperor himself." "A request, you say? Why, of course. How many ships and when?" "I need to go to Tesson and beyond the Parthian Sea. Well beyond." He looked concerned. "Inland? That is a life I have left behind me for good reasons, Vincentius. Between the bandits and
Parthians, safety is hardly a guarantee as it was in your father's day. But tell me more. But over some food. You must be hungry. Come." Over a generous feast, you explain to him the emperor's request. He's concerned, and it is evident to you why. With the protection of Rome's navy on the Roman seas, maritime trade was far safer than the trade caravan routes between the Parthians and Rome. He had built for himself a comfortable and lavish lifestyle and had obviously grown quite accustomed to it. You were nothing if not persuasive and played on his ego and expertise, and after many wines and much food, you had an agreement to have him bring you to Ctesiphon, where he would make arrangements to bring you to the southern reaches of Indos, where ships were built that could see you the rest of the way to Selica. Taking your group would be 2 stagecoaches. They were much like your carpentum, but meant for more individuals and pulled by 4 horses. The soldiers you had brought along with Verus, the personal bodyguard of Balshillic. You knew their history well. Balshillic had purchased Verus's freedom from an abusive master, and the bond that these two now shared was nigh on unbreakable. Verus was from the lands of Germania, a tribe known as the Chatti. They were foes of Rome, and he had been captured as a young warrior. Verus himself was lean but muscular and broad-shouldered, with a physique sculpted from countless battles in the arena, his skin bronzed and weathered from the sun near the Roman sea, a sharp jawline with deep blue-set eyes that held an intensity born from his brutal past. Numerous scars covered his body, a testament to his history of battles both outside and inside the arena. The most prominent being a scar, a jagged mark running from his left temple to his jaw. You would take the Roman roadways first to Damascus and then overland to Palmyra and down to Ctesiphon. The journey to the Parthian waters, now under Roman control, would take some 40 days in total. Balshillic was clear on one particular thing. The journey would not be easy. Inland was not the climate of Rome or Egyptus, but an unforgiving land where the blazing heat of the daytime sun gave way to the freezing cold of the moon and stars. Between the borders of Rome and the Parthians was a lawless badland where bandits roamed. Roman and Parthian roads in these lawless lands suffered from disrepair, with large swaths not usable. As dawn breaks over Tyre, the bustling coastal city was already alive with activity. Market vendors set up their stalls while fishermen were hauling in their early morning catches. Among this vibrant scene, 2 stagecoaches stand ready, horses hitched and awaiting departure. The carriages sturdy and well-constructed, designed for the long journey ahead, their deep brown wood contrasting with the shimmering azure of the Mediterranean Sea. Horses were arranged for 6 of the Roman soldiers not able to ride in the coaches, and to provide mobility for defense. Your group gathers, supplies checked and rechecked. The soldiers adjust their armor, and beside them, Balshillic talks animatedly with Verus, occasionally pointing at a map, while Lucius, despite his internal turmoil, assists with the loading, keeping himself occupied to stave off his torment. The journey takes you through rolling hills and expansive plains, punctuated by small settlements and farms. Olive groves stretch out on either side, their silvery green leaves reflecting the bright sunlight. As the day wears on, the heat intensifies, but the rhythm of hooves and the gentle rocking of the stagecoaches lull some into a light doze. Each evening, the convoy halts at designated rest spots, sometimes a lone caravanserai on the edge of a town, other times merely a suitable clearing in the wilderness. Tents are pitched, fires lit, and meals prepared. The nights are filled with the hum of conversation, the strumming of a lute, and occasionally a soldier recounting tales of previous exploits. These stopovers become a cherished respite, a time to stretch weary muscles, share stories, and prepare for the next day. And while the landscape changes from fertile fields to semi-arid desert, the routine remains the same. The desert night unfolds and the caravan settles into a pattern of quiet activities and muted conversations. As the fires flicker, your attention is drawn to Lucius, who sits at the outskirts, a silhouette of dejection, and he stares into the fire, the usual spark in his eyes gone, the liveliness and laughter that once defined him nowhere to be found. His once hearty appetite is gone too. The plate of food beside him remains untouched. attracting flies. You approach, your frustration evident. "You did this to yourself," you state coldly. Lucius doesn't respond, but continues to stare into the fire, the void in his gaze speaking volumes. It's not the physical pain that seems to torment him now, but rather the loss of the person he once was. "Sleep might help," you suggest tersely, though you know insomnia has been a relentless tormentor for him. He chuckles, a dry, humorless sound. "What sleep? I've forgotten." Varys watches from a distance, his expression unreadable. He eventually joins you, however, glancing briefly at Lucius's untouched food. "Eat. It will help," he advises Lucius. Lucius just shrugs, pushing the plate further away. "Lost the taste for it," he mutters. Your impatience simmers. "Your choices led to this. Remember that," you say, emphasizing the weight of responsibility. Lucius finally meets your gaze, and for a moment there's a glimmer of defiance. "I remember everything," he replies, his voice barely above a whisper before turning his attention back to the flames. It was clear to you now what the issue was. Your father had always chosen you as his favorite. You felt you had, of course, earned the right by spending countless hours at his side while being taught the business, whereas Lucius was usually found falling headfirst into ill-begotten adventures. You pause on this some seconds with a thought. Which came first? His misadventures causing your father to select you, or your father selecting you causing his misadventures? It was an unpleasant thought which, with some guilt, you quickly tried to shake from your mind, eventually drifting into restless sleep with the burden of this knowledge still heavy. The caravan the next day moves slowly. You have journeyed far from Tyre, and you now feel the weight of your mission as the Roman envoy, far heavier than the desert sun heating upon your neck. Then, just before afternoon, from the west a swell of dust clouds the horizon, gradually giving way to the dark shapes of riders. You are outnumbered by roughly half your number, their robes stained with the sweat and grime of the desert billow in the wind, their faces hidden beneath covers reveal only glinting predatory eyes. It is clear from the mishmash of clothes that they wear that this group consists of former soldiers, both Roman and Parthian. As they approach, the 8 Roman legionaries form a protective line, shields and gladi poised for a fight. Balshillic, the ever-watchful merchant, clutches the reins of his lead horse with a white-knuckled grip. Next to him, as always, stands Varys, the former gladiator, muscles tense beneath his bronze skin, his fingers dancing unexpectedly near the hilt of his weapon. The leader of the bandits, his face marred by a poorly healed burn scar, halts his steed before you, a cruel smile splitting his lips. "Roman, your coins or your life?" he demands in broken Latin. Without hesitation, you step forward, the diplomat in you taking the lead. "There can be a deal between us, gold in exchange for passage. There's no need for blood." The bandit's smile widens, his yellow teeth visible. "A deal? The desert takes what it wants, Roman. And today, it wants all you have." Feeling the tension thicken, you press on. "Half the gold, safe passage, and Rome will know of your generosity." For a moment, just a heartbeat, it seems he might agree, but then, with a raucous laugh, he signals his men. The air, already heavy with heat, becomes charged with impending violence. Varys, never one to wait, charges forward, his blades slicing through the air with a deadly grace, clashing against the curved swords of the bandits, each move a dance honed by years in the arena, and each thrust or slash landing with certainty. The legionaries join in immediately, their disciplined training evident in their coordinated strikes. The desert, silent witness to countless battles, echoes with the sound of steel against steel, shouts of pain, and the desperate cries of men meeting their end. You duck as a stray arrow whizzes past, embedding itself into the wooden cart behind you. The scene is chaotic, a whirl of motion and fury. Balshillic, using his knowledge of the desert, guides a few horses into a stampede, causing a momentary disruption in the bandits' formation. But the bandits, the desert ghosts, are numerous and relentless. Slowly your defensive circle tightens as the bandits press their advantage, with their banner, a golden eye on black fabric, flapping. In the thick of it all, Varus stands like a titan, his blade dripping scarlet, but even he can't stem the tide forever. The battle rages on. The only thing clear, the desert with its shifting sands and unforgiving heat will claim a few more souls before the day is done. The battle intensifies, and the sound of fighting grows louder. Varus then spots the bandit leader momentarily in the clear and charges at him, taking down several of the bandits' guards in his path. The Roman legionaries again follow his lead, pushing back against the bandits with their shields and swords. The leader tries to fend off Varus, but Varus overpowers him, knocking him to the ground. The leader quickly scrambles back up to his men, who now start to panic. Balshillik then yells something in a language you don't understand, but clearly it terrifies the bandits. They begin to quickly retreat with their leader. The Romans on horseback pursue the fleeing bandits briefly before returning to regroup. There are wounds to be treated and losses to be counted. With the immediate threat gone, the caravan continues its journey to Ctesiphon, down 2. The bandits, still at a distance, are watching your progress, and while not approaching again, they continue to track you. On a clear evening, several days later, the approach to Ctesiphon, the colossal silhouette of the city breaking the horizon, the setting sun amplifying the magnificence of the Parthian city, now in Roman hands. You're almost numb to the jolts and shifts of the stagecoach, and captivated as you near the arched entry into the city, the Tak Kasra. It stands tall and impressive, the intricate brickwork of the arch painted blue with sculpted statues showcasing the city's past. Once inside Ctesiphon, the sounds of urban life replace that of the wind and the shifting sands outside. There are the shouts of merchants hawking their wares, the laughter of children playing in the streets, and the constant hum of conversations all around you. However, it is clear there is a tenseness felt within the civilian population, not so accepting of their new Roman overlords. Stares that fall on you linger with an extra second of disdain. The scents, just as varied, from the mouth-watering aroma of grilled meats to the sharp scent of spices carried by the breeze. The city sprawls out with a mix of buildings, from modest dwellings to grand structures, many of which appear damaged. Many homes showcase hanging gardens, adding greenery to the reddish-brown of the bricks and stones. The Tigris River meanders nearby, its steady flow providing a backdrop to the city life. As the day yields to night, lanterns begin to glow, casting a soft light on the pathways. You see Balshillik gesture towards a familiar face. The man nods, leading you to a well-maintained residence, its gates adorned with detailed bronze work. You're about to experience the hospitality of Ctesiphon after a long journey. In the spacious residence provided by Balshillik's associate, the evening's rest and food is most welcome. Finally, the sounds of laughter again and clinking glasses fill the room as you and your entourage share stories of your travels. As the evening deepens, Lucius, still tormented, slips out to the garden for fresh air, hoping the night's cool embrace will provide him a brief bit of comfort. The host of the evening, a rotund and boisterous man named Darius Artor, stands to share a piece of news. "Gentlemen," he begins, catching everyone's attention with his commanding voice, "I must inform you of an unsettling rumor. Soldiers returning from the eastern frontiers have brought with them a mysterious ailment. Many are falling ill, and it seems to be spreading." Murmurs of concern ripple through the room. The Antonine Plague, though its name is not yet known to you, will come to be one of the greatest disasters of the Roman Empire. But for now, it's an unknown threat, a shadow looming on the horizon. "Also," he continues, "your Roman general Cassius, he has sacked the royal palaces in the city. It would be best to leave at first light, as once your soldiers leave, there will be repercussions." Balshillik turns to you, a worried expression creasing his aged face. "This is dire news, especially with our intended route," he murmurs. As you contemplate the implications, Varus taps your shoulder, his face taut with worry. "Your brother, Lucius, he has been gone a long time." The sudden realization dawns. The mirth of the evening fades instantly. Concerned, you step out into the garden only to find his cup on a stone bench, abandoned, and no sign of your brother. Panic sets in. Rapidly, you gather Balshillik and Varus, and the search expands throughout the estate and then to the nearby streets, but with no luck. Just then, a young servant from the house approaches, clutching a wax-sealed tablet, the insignia eerily familiar. It's the same symbol you saw on the banners of the bandits that accosted your caravan earlier. Unsealing the tablet, you read the message written in a rushed and slang Latin script. Your brother for 300 aureus. Refuse or alert the Romans, and he dies. Instructions to follow. You freeze. The bandit leader somehow he's made his way into Tesson, and now he has Lucius. The instructions direct you to a secluded alley behind the market district. Balshillik, recalling your earlier encounter, realizes the bandit leader must have had connections in Tesson, and is likely working with local rebels against Roman rule, probably to continue to sow chaos, which, to the bandits, would only be advantageous. Your small group stands hidden, watching the arranged location. The bandit leader steps into view, Lucius beside him, with a blade at his throat. Another bandit steps forward, his hand outstretched for the ransom. You step into the open, the bag of aureus in hand. The bandit's leader's eyes light up in recognition and disdain. Romans, he sneers, always think that gold can solve everything. As the transaction is about to be completed, the alley soon erupts into a furious battle. Roman steel clashing against the ragtag weapons of the rebels. An arrow fired from the rooftop strikes one of your Roman guards. Another gets cornered, outnumbered, and falls beneath the bandits' blades. Amidst the chaos, you manage to pull Lucius away from the conflict, and together with the surviving guards and Varus, you retreat, leaving behind the pouch of gold. And though Lucius is safe, the cost is steep, both in lives and gold. And with the bandit leader still at large, the dangers are far from over. Later, back at the estate, you find Lucius on the balcony, looking out over the bustling city below, still trying to shake off the haze from his unplanned adventure. Drawing a deep breath, you approach him. "You all right?" You begin, trying to keep your voice even. Lucius doesn't meet your gaze. "I shouldn't have gone off on my own. I thought it would help, that I could find a distraction." You nod. "I understand, but you have to realize, Lucius, that these aren't the streets of Rome. Every step we take here can have consequences, not just for you, but for us." Lucius finally looks up, his eyes clouded with guilt. "I didn't think, just wanted some relief. And look where that got you," you snap. Then take a moment to again calm yourself. "I'm not saying this to be harsh, Lucius, but we can't afford any more slip-ups. We are far from home, and our safety far from guaranteed." He swallows hard. "I know. I'm sorry. You have to promise me, Lucius, no more wandering off, no more taking matters into your own hands." Lucius nods. "I promise. I'll stay close. No more trouble." You sigh, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Just remember why we're here, and that our mission is bigger than any of us. We need to stick together. This behavior must end." Lucius nods again, more resolute than you've seen him in a long time. "Understood," he says. You give him a final firm look, hoping the message truly sinks in. "Good. Let's get some rest. Tomorrow is critical. We have made enemies, and Balshillik says we still have much distance to the Parthian Sea."